Manipulation. Guilt. Guilt is used against you by two entities. First of all, guilt is used by us as part of our manipulative repertoire to control you, to draw fuel from you. Your empathic trait of honesty, one of several empathic traits that you have, is also corrupted by your emotional thinking to make you feel guilty, so that you will continue to interact with the narcissist, thus breaching no contact and continuing to feed your own addiction. Accordingly, we utilize guilt as a manipulative measure to control you and draw fuel from you. Your emotional thinking, the enemy within, corrupts your empathic trait of honesty to make you feel guilty about certain behaviors for the purposes of causing you to contact us, to communicate with us, to do things for us, or to sit and dwell and think about us and feel guilty. Feel guilty for the way that you have behaved. Feel guilty so that you feel that you need to contact us. Feel guilty so that you have to put things right. We exploit your guilt, or rather, we exploit guilt for the purposes of making you do what we want. This is done unconsciously by lesser and mid-range, and consciously by greater and ultra. And your emotional thinking takes hold of your honesty and uses it against you to make you feel guilty when you ought not to, so that you feed your addiction and engage and interact with us. If you applied logic, you would realize that you have nothing to feel guilty about at all, but you fail to do so. This is because your emotional thinking is so high from existing interactions with us that it makes it difficult, in some instances nearly impossible, for you to identify that you shouldn't feel guilty. Invariably, you experience this: I know I shouldn't feel guilty, yet why do I do? In some instances, you don't even realize you shouldn't feel guilty. You just are. You just feel it. But you ought not to, but you don't realize that that is the case. We exploit guilt to obtain the prime aims from you, chiefly to control you and gain fuel. We are the enemy without, and your enemy within wants the addiction to be fed, and therefore that misleading emotional thinking causes you to believe that you are guilty, flawed logic, and it also makes you feel guilty so that you act on that guilt by breaching your no-contact regime, interacting with us, and feeding the addiction. You wear guilt like a noose around your neck. There it hangs, just waiting to be yanked by me, and the tightening ligature around that slender neck will bring you back into line. That is how we use guilt. I can then allow the noose to hang about your neck once again, ready to be used as soon as I decide that it is necessary. You don't even try to remove this noose. If you did try, of course, you would feel guilty for doing so, and therefore the consequence is that there is always the risk of guilt remaining around you, on you, and about you. Guilt imposed by us as part of our manipulations, guilt imposed on you by your own emotional thinking corrupting your empathic trait of honesty. There is no slow squeezing when this noose is called into action. It is immediate, painful, and chastising. It allows the sudden and instant assertion of control. What better way than to achieve this than relying on something that is intrinsic to another person? The noose burns, it constricts, and it chokes, and you know that it is not going to go anywhere. The only way, you believe, for you to deal with it is to comply, and then the noose will slacken, but it will not grant you permanent release. You have carried this noose for a very long time. Once upon a time it was only a few strands thick, yet, for all of that apparent fragility, it could not be cut nor broken, neither snapped or torn. As time went on, the strands multiplied, so that the thickness increased until now it hangs about you, sturdy and effective. Nobody else wove these additional strands into it. You did. You brought it all on yourself because of the twisted delight that you have to wear this noose. You, through the fog of emotional thinking, regard it as an obligation. It is part of who you are, and whilst the pain it causes you is something that you would prefer not to have to suffer, you know that when it makes you suffer, you gain comfort from its presence and effect. That is not logical. That is emotional thinking. The fact that it hurts so good. You know that not everybody has such a noose. There are those who do not even have one. You often wonder what must that be like, to be unburdened by guilt, not to have the yoke about you which weighs you down, restricts you and governs you. What must such freedom feel like? Then there are those who have such a noose, but they seem somehow able to lift it off and leave it behind when it suits them. Others still find that the noose is weak and it snaps apart when it seeks to apply pressure against its wearer. There is no such release for you, empath. This is the noose that has always maintained your compliance. Sometimes you do fight against it, hoping that you might perhaps once, just once, be able to assert such strength that causes it to break. But it never happens. No matter what resistance you exhibit or how much you strain to tear it apart, you fail, and you have no choice other than to comply, so that when the pain recedes it leaves its mark about you. There is no doubt about it. Even the searing pain may have lessened. You can feel that tight grip still, and you know that others can see where it has left its mark. Not all have this ability to recognize the mark of the noose of guilt, but a certain group do, us, and we always want to exploit its presence. Oh, there have been times when you have sought to hide this noose, mask its presence in the hope that you escape the attention of those who recognize it. Even if you manage to conceal the noose, the mark that is left about your neck is like an indelible stain. You cannot remove it, and it is the stamp that tells those who know these things that you carry such a noose. You may not realize that it is you who has added those additional strands over the years, causing the noose to thicken and strengthen. Those strands are bound together, layer upon layer, wound about one another, so that they become more than the sum of their parts. The strands which are fashioned from your pervasive, deep-seated guilt are added to those things which you say and do. Each time you think a certain way, which you cannot help but do because of who and what you are, another strand is added, then another and another, until soon the noose becomes thick and heavy. Each time you think the following: it is my fault, I didn't listen. I need to do more to help. He cannot help it. I need to ensure I understand. If only I could be stronger. If only I knew what to do. I should be getting home. He will wonder where I am. I should not be doing this. I should not speak ill of him, really. He is my husband. I should not think these things. I do love her. I just feel so weak, and this is when I have these thoughts. I ought to have realized. I must listen more. I have to keep trying. I owe it to him to help. He isn't as bad as people say. If I just keep going, it will become better. I have to try, because if I don't, who will be there for him? It is my duty. I made my vows, and I shall abide by them. I must be doing something wrong to make him feel like this. I just seem to say the wrong thing at the wrong time to her. When you say all of these things, these thoughts and words, plus many more, cause the noose to become stronger. Thus it tightens, and we as the narcissists yank it, pulling you in our direction so that you remain under our control, bound by this guilt to serve, to support, and to fuel. An ever-present burden which you add to yourself each and every day, though it is not logical to do so. A method by which you are manipulated, cajoled, and coerced to fill the narcissist's needs. The noose is not there to hang you. No, there is no desire to bring about your demise. You are much more effective to us when you're functioning. Your guilt will not bring about your end, but instead it acts to maintain your imprisonment. Your emotional thinking makes the noose grow. I use the noose to then control you. Can it be escaped? We think not. It is for life, even though it may not tighten or constrict for some time, even years. It is always there, and with the mark so prominent, another may come and utilize the control that the noose affords, even though we may not be able to. We will not lift it away from you. It serves too great a function for us. We will not lift it because it is your burden, perpetuated by your emotional thinking. Yet, you can lift it. It is not a simple or straightforward process, and we strive to ensure that we do not allow you the opportunity to address this chance to relieve yourself of this noose of guilt. It can be done. It is quite the task to achieve. But for you, the journey of removing your noose of guilt starts with this question and understanding the answer to it. Who put it there in the first place?